Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's a busy Wednesday morning here on the 7th day of January. Thanks for starting your day with us here on O'Connor and Company. We'll make it worth your while. Coming up in 30 minutes, Cal Thomas will join the conversation. At 7:35, it'll be Jason Isaac of the American Energy Institute talk about the Venezuela oil and dropping fuel prices in America. 8:05, Jim Hansen on the Mark Kelly situation. And then at 8:35, friend of the program, Governor Scott Walker of Young America's Foundation on the passing of Michael Reagan. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with Bethany Mandel joining us this morning as Julie Gunlock is under the weather. Get better soon, Julie. We are praying for you. Bethany, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. It is my pleasure. I love Julie, and I'm just sad that I can't listen to her.
I know, me too. And by the way, check out Bethany's Substack, The Mom Wars, over there at Substack and podcast platforms. Joining us right now is the president of SBA Pro-Life America, Marjorie Dannenfelser. Marjorie, usually we have you on around this time to give a preview of the March for Life, but the conversation got preempted yesterday with the president giving a bit of a pep talk to the Republican caucus there, setting forth the agenda for the 2026 legislative session, and he suggested that on the Hyde Amendment, there should be some flexibility from Republicans when negotiating with Democrats. Thanks for joining us this morning. Give us a little background and explain what the Hyde Amendment is.
Thank you, Larry, and hey, Bethany. This is not the preview of the march that I was hoping to give. This is a real disappointing moment in the comments that the president gave yesterday. The Hyde Amendment has been long-standing Republican policy. It's actually been bipartisan consensus for decades, since 1976, when Henry Hyde from Illinois began this amendment as an attachment to the Medicaid bill all those years ago. And it's very basic. It's just no taxpayer funding of abortion. And in this case, we're talking about negotiations over extending the health care subsidies and whether taxpayer funds should support plans that support abortion. Yeah. So it's just an extension of that same principle. And there's some things you negotiate, some things that, you're flexible on, like what you wear next day, where you go to dinner, where you go on vacation. But you definitely are not flexible on requiring people to pay for what they see as the death of other human beings. Or if you just are ambivalent about it, even if you're pro-choice and you think, it shouldn't make people pay for it. That's where we are, and that's a bad place to be.
Marjorie Dannenfelser is our guest from SBA Pro-Life America. Maybe you can help me out here. I truly am confused. I'm not using that as a rhetorical device. You said that this has been bipartisan and agreed to. I mean, we've had Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House and Chuck Schumer as the majority leader in the Senate and Barack Obama as the president when Democrats controlled everything, yet the Hyde Amendment remained intact. Why now? I understand Republicans have a slim majority, but what has changed now that this, what was once a sacrosanct, understood, and agreed upon item of the budget, why now is it in danger, and why are Republicans being compelled to be flexible?
Yes, well, one matter does deserve explanation, and that is what happened in 2010, which was a departure on the Hyde Amendment in Obamacare. And this was a seminal moment and a moment where politics really shifted to be what it is today. And that is when Obama required independents and pro-life Republicans to vote for Obamacare with taxpayer funding in it. And they came up with a fig leaf and executive order stuff that made it look like maybe they were Heidi, a little Hyde Amendment-like, but it really was not that. It was a fig leaf. So that was the moment in which things started to change. Now, the Hyde Amendment and every other federal program, however, has stayed as is, with perhaps only slight changes around the edges over time. But this is the moment that we're looking at now is the Republican Party's position on this issue. And what it is more fundamentally is a test on whether the Republican Party is pro-life at all anymore after the bruising, gutting of the platform as the president moved into the general election last time. So the confusion I understand, because wow, why change after since 1976 when Republicans have supported this? It would only be because there is a shift in thinking that this is really not a bedrock principle of the Republican Party anymore. And if we really need, and there's a concern that unless we cave on something, that midterms are in jeopardy because subsidies, healthcare subsidy extension, let's just say what it is, Obamacare extended. If we don't do that, we'll be harmed in midterms. And I just think we have to ask the question, who are we? Yeah. Who is the we we're talking about there? So how about flex on something else?
Are you hearing from folks that are, I think if Trump, we talked about this in the last segment, but I'm hopeful that this is Trump blustering in public and that maybe he's singing a different tune in private. But I think that a lot of folks take for granted that the get out the vote, boots on the ground for Republicans overlap with pro-life voters. They're very energized. Are you hearing from folks anecdotally that, if this is it, then I'm not going to be a boot these midterms?
Oh, yeah.
Are you hearing that at all?
I am. This is qualitatively different. We run the largest voter contact program, certainly in the pro-life world, but arguably in the country. It is enormous. And you ask, last time we reached 4.5 million battleground homes. And when you ask these energetic young people and middle-aged people as well to go door to door when their president has just sacrificed the most simple and fundamental principle, you can't do it. And there's much discussion of late, like, the pro-lifers are a cheap date. Well, I'll just hear it. I don't know if y'all have been talking about it, but I hear that a little bit these days. And, I haven't dated in a while, but no one wants to be called cheap date. Pro-lifers do not assume anything. Now, when you choose between Harris and Trump, yes, that was a moment, even though things were rocky at that point with the president and his commitments, that was rough. This is qualitatively different. Yeah. And it's not only, and it will hurt, who has to vote here? Who has to vote are House members and senators. And so right now we're looking at whether they will sustain this or whether they will negotiate it away. And I think the latter is not true. I think what I'm seeing yesterday was a huge backlash on the Hill and some unity that is necessary. But we've got a long way to go from arguing over the Hyde Amendment.
I've seen some people making the argument that, listen, Roe v. Wade is done. It's history. This is now up to the states. This shouldn't even be a federal issue. Maybe there is room for a transition of the Republican Party to say, from a federal perspective, this is not the issue that it once was because Roe v. Wade has now been eliminated, and you states work this out.
Well, actually, the issue is more than it ever was because all the overturn of Roe v. Wade meant was an open door for now the will of the people can make its way into the law. So the big question mark is, what is the will of the people on this? It's the biggest gift that we've received since 1973, the Dobbs decision. But now is the moment to get to work on refining and defining what that actually is. It certainly isn't paying for abortion in Obamacare. Is it, and is there anything that we as a nation actually stand for on this issue? So what we have is pure opportunity. That's what the overturn of Roe v. Wade was. The question is, what will we do with it?
Add this to the long list of things that Obamacare has made horrible in our society over the last 15 years. January 23rd is the March for Life, and I guess we're reminded today how critically important this issue still is and how important that demonstration is every year. Marjorie, will you promise to come back and talk to us right before the March for Life once again?
I can't wait.
Thank
wait.
you.
I'll talk to you then.
We'll talk to you then. Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of
Thank
SBA.
you.
That's Susan B. Anthony. Let's not forget, she's ours. Pro-Life America.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Got some updates on the situation in Venezuela. President Trump had a couple of different statements yesterday. The first had to do with 30 to 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil that Venezuela is currently sitting on their docks, ready to go. Normally, before the removal of the dictator Maduro, those barrels would have gone to Cuba or Russia or China or other rogue nations who were bypassing the sanctions that had been put on Venezuela. But now they're ours. The president stated on social media the oil will be sold at its market price and the money will be controlled by him, the president of the United States. He says that that will ensure that it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States. And he said he's asking Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute the plan immediately. They'll be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks in the United States. By the way, the markets responded to that news and other good developments out of Venezuela with another record day. That's 2 days in a row that the Dow and the S&P closed at record highs. U.S. crude fell by about 1.3%, down to $56 a barrel with the announcement. And it appears as though Trump will be meeting with representatives from Chevron, ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil, and other domestic oil producers to talk about investments in Venezuela's oil sector and what, if any, security provisions need to be provided to make sure that that industry can get back up on its feet again. Quite a scene there in Venezuela, as so far the aftermath is working in favor of American interests, Bethany.
Yeah, I love to see it. I'm a neocon at heart. But I think that Americans are not thinking enough about this. This feels a little retro, but I think Americans are not thinking enough about how this will help us with our gas prices, and everything is downstream of gas prices.
I think that's understandable because we've seen this movie before.
Yes.
We were told by Vice President Cheney famously to Tim Russert on Meet the Press that the Iraqis would welcome us with, rose petals at our feet for getting rid of Saddam Hussein, and the oil would then be ours. And I mean, we heard all of this before, and it did not happen. Yeah. And I think in a way it didn't happen because Bush and Cheney and the aforementioned neocons, Bethany, that you include yourself in your heart as amongst, I think that they were in some way shy and reluctant to embrace the idea that, yes, we did go in there partly for oil, to free up oil for free purposes, to help the economy worldwide, and, yes, to benefit the United States of America. That in some way they had to apologize for that. So they came up with it was about human rights, and it wasn't about this and about – Trump ain't that guy. Trump is perfectly fine saying, you bet your ass this is about oil.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that because guess what? If we don't commandeer that oil and if we don't open it up for free peoples around the world, including U.S. interests, China will do it.
Yeah.
You know how we know that? Because China's been doing it.
Well, China's already there. When we took Maduro, Chinese officials were on the ground. There was a really funny clip that went around in Spanish of a guy. There was a Venezuelan guy, and he was asked by a reporter, well, they're just doing this because they want the oil. And he's like, what do you think that the Chinese and the Russians are doing here? They don't want my empanadas or something, whatever the food was.
Arepas. Do you think they want my recipe for arepas? Yes, exactly.
Everyone, but also we don't need a humanitarian reason, and one very clearly exists in Venezuela. But we need a national interest reason besides the oil, and it's the narco-terrorism. We've been blowing them out of the water for months.
I would argue that is a humanitarian interest.
Yes, 100%.
The difference is it's American humanitarian interest. Let's not forget about that. It is astounding, as you mentioned, neocons, to see the likes of Bill Kristol mocking this and saying, well, this is just colonialism. This is just outrageous. It's like, he led the charge on colonialism back in the day, but they would never be so audacious as to say it. They pretended it was otherwise. And by the way, that's part of the reason why it failed.
Yeah. I just want a wellness check on Bill Kristol. Do you think he has, is that it is incredible to me how shameless one can be about completely reversing every ideal that you have held tightly your entire career. I want that chutzpah. I need some of that.
We'll pick that up a little later when we tell you about the big political announcement made by one George Conway. That'll be related to that topic. In the meantime, one other related announcement from President Trump yesterday having to do with Venezuela and oil. He demanded to the Venezuelan government, or what exists of it, that they break off all ties with China and Russia and only partner with the United States on oil. That's an exclusive from ABC News. We'll see how that develops, and we will bounce it off Jason Isaac at 7:35. He is the CEO of American Energy Institute. Right now it's 6:23. Coming up, we'll talk to Cal Thomas. Keep it here.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37 now on this Wednesday, 7th day of January. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. And thanks for listening in on our morning conversation about everything that matters. Coming up at 7:35, Jason Isaac, American Energy Institute, on what's going on with oil and gas prices. 8:05 brings us Jim Hansen, retired Special Forces dude, talk about the Mark Kelly situation. Then at 8:35, Governor Scott Walker, Young America's Foundation, to reflect on the passing of Michael Reagan yesterday. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Bethany Mandel. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning.
And Bethany, I would love for Cal Thomas here, who joins us now, to sort of pick up on that note real fast about Michael Reagan. Cal, first of all, good morning. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. I just finished making hotel reservations in Greenland. I want to be on top of that.
Was it the Trump Hotel by any chance that you were?
Well, no. Yeah, I think they're going to build a ballroom off it too. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, Michael Reagan, obviously the son of President Ronald Reagan, also a political commentator, or for a little while a radio host in his own right. His passing yesterday, I was kind of surprised that he had passed away. I didn't realize.
Well, he's been kind of out of the limelight recently.
Yeah.
I knew him a little bit. Knew his mother and Jane Wyman. I got a great Jane Wyman story to tell you after this, if you like. Michael was molested as a child. He had a really difficult childhood. He was teased by classmates as being an illegitimate child because he was adopted by the Reagans, and he struggled a lot. He later came to faith in Christianity and turned his life around and became a really, really good talk show host. One of the things that I think differentiated Michael from a lot of the other talk show hosts is that he would explain legislation. He would take these difficult bills, some of them hundreds of pages long, and break them down in ways that average people could understand them. He was really a good talk show host. He did a great job. Now, I got to tell you the Jane Wyman story.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
So one night I went to pick Jane Wyman up at her house. I'd gotten to know her through the great actress Loretta Young, and this is before GPS, and I was to take her back to a hotel in Palm Springs where we were having dinner with a bunch of celebrities and other people, and I got lost, and it was dark, and it was just the two of us, and I turned to her and I said, if we're found here, whose reputation do you think will be hurt the most?
Wait, what'd she say, though?
She just kind of looked at me. She wasn't sure.
I think she was sure.
She's a great lady. She had many offers to tell all about Ronald Reagan. Many financial offers from book publishers. She turned them all down.
Yeah, very classy.
Yep.
I'd love for you to reflect also on a different kind of passing, the passing of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It officially shut down. And one wonders if PBS would still be around if they had just not made that decision so long ago to go not just left, but hard left and exclude. And they always point to William F. Buckley, who, of course, hasn't been on PBS. Well, he hasn't been alive for decades, let alone been on PBS. But if only they had actually decided, let's really have all views here, and let's not just go to the hard left inside the Beltway, Manhattan, D.C. sort of perspective on things.
Well, this is the arrogance of the left, Larry, and they think they are completely right. despite evidence that they have been completely wrong on so many things, and that's about to be proved in New York City with Mamdani, and it certainly has been proved in Venezuela, where most of the country was living in poverty and being starved of their right amounts of money from the oil industry there. So this is always the arrogance. We went to the right schools and you didn't. Our columns appear in the right papers and yours don't. We don't read anybody else. We don't watch anything else. We would never watch Fox News, or because the left says, because if we were caught, we would be listed as traitors. And so that's their worldview. And so there's some great shows on PBS. I mean, I always love All Creatures Great and Small and some of these other series, but the new stuff is so slanted to the left, you would think you were living in a totalitarian country by watching it.
Yeah, which we kind of are.
Yeah, well,
not the way not the way they think.
No.
So let's focus on what's really important with all of this. Did they just kill Big Bird, or perhaps is there a private corporation protecting Big Bird and Elmo?
There could be, and there should be. And if you like that kind of stuff and you want your kids to watch it, and when I was growing up, I had books. Imagine that. I remember a little book called Little Toot, the Engine That Could. And later there was, the Thomas the Tank Train, no relation. And all these things. I managed to get a decent education, a decent worldview, and without PBS. So a lot of parents just want to apparently turn their kids over to the TV set and let Big Bird and Elmo and the rest. I remember when I was a copy boy at NBC, I remember Sam and Friends, which was a show at 11:25 at night just before Jack Parr and the Tonight Show, and Jim Henson and Kermit the Frog and some of the early characters did their little thing there, and I got to know Jim a little bit, and when he hit it big with a Wilkins coffee ad, made a lot of money, he went out and bought a Rolls-Royce and parked it next to my Pontiac Tempest Le Mans 4-cylinder car. And I said, Jim, would you mind moving your car? He said, is it in the way? I said, no, you're just depreciating the value of my car.
That's hilarious. Listen, Cal, before we let you go, a quick reflection on the military action and law enforcement action to apprehend Maduro there in Venezuela, and what appears to be a very different tune being sung by certain Democrats in town who just a couple of years ago really wanted Maduro gone, but now apparently, how dare you get rid of Maduro?
Yeah, they make the old show on television called Flipper look really bad, because they are unbelievable flippers. Chuck Schumer, Chris Murphy, all the others were calling for the ouster of Maduro during the first Trump administration, and even during the Biden administration. Now all of a sudden they've decided that it's politically beneficial to them to take the other side. I used to say Washington D.C. is the only place where the politicians with convictions are in prison. I think what comes next is a legitimate question. There's a UK Daily Mail story that just popped up. Armed motorcycle gangs hunt down Trump supporters on streets of Caracas as Venezuela issues 90-day order to arrest anyone supporting the U.S. attack after Maduro's ouster. This is all organized, of course, but what comes next is very important. Cuba, I hope, will come next. I think it's long past time to topple that evil regime, and I love the fact that the Ayatollah in Tehran has got an escape plan to Moscow. So I guess he's trusting Putin more than Allah.
Cuba next, huh? Don't threaten Marco Rubio with a good time, Cal Thomas. Thanks for doing. Next week, since you dabbled into your Jim Henson stories, next week I want to hear about your secret love affair with Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop, okay?
I thought we were keeping that quiet.
Thank you, Cal.
Okay, guys,
it's 6:44.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Yesterday, we talked quite a bit about the new vaccination schedule for young children. Of course, my youngest child is 18, so I don't have any firsthand experience with this. But Bethany, you still have little tykes. You still have, 3-year-olds are considered toddlers still, I think. You've got to deal with the dengue fever shot now. How does this affect you and your parenting? What, do you embrace this new schedule?
So funny that you ask me this, because I assumed after your show yesterday that you wouldn't, and I just filed a column for the New York Post about it this morning.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so it worked out very nicely. It should hopefully be in the paper tonight. I think that it's good for the most part. I think that folks need to educate themselves about, like, rotavirus, for example. Not something you want your kids to get. I would personally recommend it. But I think that it allows one of the things I really liked about the CDC sort of fact sheet, because I did things like read the fact sheet, was that they make very clear that this offers parents the ability to make their own decisions in a way that isn't coercive. The way that vaccines are talked about in pediatricians' appointments is very coercive and very paternalistic.
Amen.
And I find that very frustrating. I personally have an incredible pediatrician who, when I say things like, I don't think I want to give 3 shots today, and I'm not personally prioritizing Hep A right now, let's push that off to next year's well visit. And my pediatrician says, sure, that's no problem, because that is a relationship that is built on trust. And I think that's the relationship everyone should have. And a lot of people don't, because you can get kicked out of your pediatrician for saying something like that.
That's right.
And now with the CDC change, I'm hopeful that changes the game a little bit on this.
It's a sea change at the CDC change. I think you're right. I think, for all of the talk from government officials about patients' rights and putting health care back in the hands of patients, which we were told would happen during Obamacare, which actually quite the opposite happened. We lost choice. We lost the ability to make our own choices and speak for ourselves when we were forced into cookie-cutter health care models. This truly is the first thing that I've seen in a long, long time that empowers parents to be able to make decisions like this. Could we not stop here? Could we, I don't know, maybe talk about empowering parents having to do with choosing what gender their child is going to be raised as?
Let's not go crazy here, Larry.
Yeah,
come on.
Exactly. I also love the fact that the schedule itself, not just the recommended diseases that must be prevented via vaccination per the parent's approval, but also the schedule of how often you get these shots and how they're spread out and how many per visit. I say it all the time, but I just want to keep repeating it. My eyes were opened with my very first child when my pediatrician she has cerebral palsy, and she had basically a stroke when she was going through the birth canal as a newborn, her very first day of life. Because she had issues with her brain at the time, her pediatrician said, okay, we're going to change the vaccination schedule for her. We're going to spread these out. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And and he explained why. And I said, well, why don't we do this for all babies? Why just because our baby had this? And he said, because unlike you, most parents, we don't assume most parents are going to be diligent and bring their kids in for their vaccinations. So we try to load them up as much as possible. So the entire premise of the schedule is based on parents being lousy parents.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. I mean, that's actually, interestingly enough, after having 6 children, I can say this definitively. That's actually the premise of all pediatric care. Whenever
they assume parents suck.
And rightfully so, honestly. I can't say I blame them. The stories I hear are wild. We had a situation once with one of my kids. She had a staph infection that was like a freak weird staph infection, and my husband overheard the hospital pediatrician talking to our pediatrician on the phone about whether to admit her or not. And the hospital pediatrician asked, are these people responsible enough to give this kid all the doses of the antibiotics that she needs? Because if they're not, then we really do need to admit her. And they made an admission decision based on our pediatrician's call. Are these people responsible? She wasn't admitted. Thank you to my pediatrician for vouching.
We'll look for your article. New York Post, you say?
Yeah.
New York Post. Yeah. All right. Her byline's everywhere. She writes around, if you know what I mean.
Oh, boy.
It's 6:52.